Hey, welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. I'm Johnny Venerable. He is Bo Brack. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. I'm diehard for the man behind the mic, Mr. Damon Dog, producer extraordinaire. What's up, everybody, here on a football Wednesday? We hope to be joined by All-City NFL analyst Brian Baldinger. But before we do, Bo, how we living today?
Living well. 15 days before the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock in the NFL draft? Are they going to be picking fourth? Are they going to be picking 11th, 23rd, 27th? That remains to be figured out between now and then. Monty Ossenfort and potentially the Minnesota Vikings. Could they hammer out a deal? If they don't, Johnny, we're going to figure out, who's at fault here. Who's going to be the one that's kind of trying to pick up the pieces and who's going to be thriving regardless of what happens between now and April 25th. But we are excited to bring back for a second consecutive week, as he joins us every week, our guy from the All-City NFL show, Brian Baldinger. Baldy, how we doing, man?
I'm good, guys. I mean, we've had a solar eclipse. We've got the Masters starting. We saw the men's, women's MCA finals, and we're 2 weeks away from the draft. I mean, you can't get any more excited than that.
You study the draft every year, Baldy, and it does feel like there is legitimate momentum for this class in particular to be, at least pre-draft, relatively strong. Like, you get that sense, especially like it's hard for Cardinal fans, myself, other people, to consider a trade down package from 4 to 11 potentially with Minnesota, passing on what I think is going to be a blue chip top 10. Do you get that sense that the top 10 this year is a differentiator compared to years prior?
Well, I think it's building momentum like that. But history says that if the first 4 picks are quarterbacks, that they're not all going to be good. There's going to be busts in there. I mean, whenever it's just the top 3 that are quarterbacks, it's never 3 great players. So every draft has its busts, regardless of the momentum, regardless of how they've tested and how we've sort of stacked them. It could be injuries. It could be wrong organization, bad organizations where players kind of get lost. But I do feel like between the quarterbacks that everybody's talking about, between the receivers everybody's talking about, and then the offensive linemen, I feel like there is a pretty stacked top 10 in this draft right now.
So if you're on the outside looking in of the top 10, if the Cardinals do pull the trigger on a deal that could potentially put them at 11 where the Vikings are, I mean, you still feel that Monty Ossenfort, and he would be potentially armed with 3 first-round picks, has the ability to maximize that with the prospects that will still be on the board?
I look at teams that have had 3 first-round picks. I mean, recently the Raiders did. Josh Jacobs was the best of them. Cleveland Farrell. I mean, it really didn't work out. The Detroit Lions back in the 2000s had 3 first-round picks. That didn't really work out. That's not to say that Monty can't pull, 3 studs if they would do something like that. They've got right now 6 of the top 90 picks.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of picks to begin with. I mean, you can only really develop so many rookies. They've got 6 of the top 90. If they want to go top heavy and go after real star power, they certainly have that flexibility to do it.
One of those options you would assume at 11, if the top 3 receivers are gone, maybe they're not inclined to take an offensive lineman. We talked about it, Baldy. Maybe you go and you get the first or second best defensive player in this draft.
Yeah.
Who right now would be warranted, in your opinion, of the 11th overall pick defensively? Is there a player or 2 that you think, okay, that's not a reach, even in an offensive-rich draft?
Yeah. Well, I think Dallas – I mean, I think – Dallas Turner out of Alabama is not a reach. I mean, when you watch him and you watch his moves, his power, the level of competition week in, week out, he looks like he's worthy of a top, 10 to 15 pick and a guy that can start and really ignite a defense. Maybe not on the same level as Will Anderson. Will Anderson dominated the SEC from the day that he stepped into Tuscaloosa. I don't know if he's on that level, but he's bigger, stronger, faster than Will Anderson. Not to say that he can't do it. Jared Verse at Florida State is a guy certainly, I think worth the mention because of his size and the caliber of athlete that he is. I think there's a couple corners that are certainly worthy of, a top 15 pick, whether it is Terrion Arnold at Alabama or Quinyon Mitchell at Toledo. I think some of these corners are going to go, and they're pretty. I think they're the type of corner that you put them up against the number one wide receiver, and you have a pretty good chance of contending with that number one wide receiver.
Baldy, can you fill my co-host here in on Quinyon Mitchell? He has so many concerns that he played at Toledo, but I saw firsthand in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, somebody that can compete at this level and compete at a very high level.
Well, not just that. And, the Senior Bowl was good for him because that's really what the Senior Bowl does. It allows guys that play at that MAC level or below to go compete with the other guys. And he did that. But, I think sometimes speed is overrated. But when I watch his 4.33 speed, his ability to break on a ball is real. That looks faster than a lot of other guys. His foot speed, his quickness, change of direction, and then his tackling, the way that he hits and wraps up. I think he's going to be. Terrion Arnold had a great year this year, and before the season started, everybody was talking about Kool-Aid, and really Terrion, the year that he had between his tackling, the physicality, and then his the plays that he made in almost every single game. I think he jumped in front of Kool-Aid, but I think Quinyon is right there with him right now.
So Bo's being a smart ass. I'm worried about non-Power 5 guys for a Cardinal team. Listen, they just need to hit safe picks in the first round, something they've never historically done, Baldy. So on the subject of that, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, give me a couple guys you feel like maybe aren't safe, maybe aren't bust-proof, but you feel really comfortable that their game has a chance to translate to the NFL level where at least they have a high floor.
Well, look, you talk about safe picks. Paris Johnson Jr. was a safe pick. I think he played on snap for Arizona last year. And, he's a great kid. And I thought he had a good season. I thought the offensive line really came together as the season went on, and he was a big part of it. I would say that it's hard for me to believe that Joe Alt isn't a safe pick. My brother played with his dad in Kansas City for a long time. His brothers were professional hockey players. I just can't believe that Joe Alt's not going to be a really good player. He might not be the best tackle 2 years from now in the NFL, but he's going to be a safe pick. He's not going to hurt you. I got to believe that Marvin Harrison is going to be a great player. You go into Columbus, Ohio, and you're dominating with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Garrett Wilson. All the guys are there, and you're holding your own and pulling your own weight from the very moment he got there. And then his size. But I love Roma Dunze as well, and I can make the case that Roma Dunze might be a better pro than Marvin, just simply because of what he's already accomplished and just how smooth and fluid he is and how he ran. I think there's a bunch of guys in this draft at the offensive line position. I think Caleb is a safe pick. I think there's a bunch of offensive linemen that are safe picks, regardless of where they get taken.
I don't think we've ever point blank asked you this, but it's great having you back. As far as the Cardinals and the situation they're in, if you're Monty Ossenford, if you're the one calling the shots, you're sitting at 4, and the Vikings approach you with potentially 3 first-round picks, 11, 23, and a 2025 first, or you have the opportunity to take Marvin Harrison Jr., which one would you be more inclined to do?
That's a great question. I would probably take the trade. I would take the trade just because I think you're going to get really good players, maybe not to the caliber that Marvin is, but if you're still able to get, Roma Dunze at 11 or Malik Neighbors at 11 and get an offensive lineman and get a starting defensive end, you got to look at the numbers. If you pick in the first round, the chance of those guys hitting are a great deal more from a percentage standpoint over somebody in the second or third round. So I think I would take the bounty that Minnesota might give up to go up to number 4.
Are you of the mindset, Baldy, that you have to draft for your division? The Cardinals play in an incredibly robust, physical NFC West. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. And now, Seattle's had a regime change, but historically it pushed this franchise around. I'm somebody who's advocated for Marvin at 4, but I understand if Ossenford and Gannon want to say, you know what, we just want good players, put their hand in the dirt and can push people around. And the Cardinals have been pushed around by the NFC West for the better part of 10 years.
Well, if you're in this division now with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, you better be ready to defend. You better be able to defend elite passing games and very good running games. And when you look at Christian McCaffrey and Kyron Williams last year, they were number 1 and number 2 in rushing yards per game.
Yeah.
So both teams start with the ability to run the ball. And so you better be able to stack up and limit those explosive runs from both those players. And then they have elite passing games. I mean, we've seen what Cooper Kupp and Puka has done. We've seen what, Kittle and Ayuk and Debo have done. I mean, you better be a complete defense to try and contend. And then if you look at what Seattle's doing now, I mean, Seattle brought the offense coordinator from the University of Washington in. If you watch Michael Penix and Roman Dooms, and you watch that offense, I know you did, in the Pac-12, like nobody played bombs away offense the way the Washington Huskies did. And if any of that comes to Seattle and you're looking at DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, like it looks a little bit like what we just watched with Jalen Polk, McMillan, and Doomsday. And it is, you better be able to defend the deep part of the field if it comes like we watched at Washington.
I feel like JG, Nick Rollis, they do a pretty good job. Their defenses they don't like to get beat deep. They don't like to give up the big play. They did a relatively good job with not a great roster defensively last year. I'll get you out on this. At this point in draft season, have you identified your guys in this draft, Baldy? Who are a couple of your guys in this draft that we can look towards draft day, that glorious 3-day stretch?
I always start, inside. So, I mean, as soon as I saw West Virginia play and I watched Zach Frazier, I texted a friend of mine who's the personnel director for a team, and I said, could he start at center for you tomorrow? And he goes, he might be our center for tomorrow. It was just that fast. You could see it. But then Graham Barton, I went to Duke. I met the kid last year at OL Masterminds in Frisco, Texas. He was training with Duke Manoweather down there. This is a kid that started at center at Duke as an 18-year-old freshman. And then, the last 2 years at left tackle I got up against, the best that Florida State had or Clemson or whatever. He looks like he could play right now. And he tested really well. I mean, I think J.C. Latham, I had a buddy of mine who is a starting tackle in this league. Just look at the top 5 tackles for me. And I wanted to know what he thought. And he had Latham right there at the very top. I know other guys have come out of Alabama and there's been hit or miss on the offensive line, but I feel like J.C. Latham is a guy that's going to hit. I think Fuaga is going to be a great player. I think Fuatano is going to be a Pro Bowl guard in this business. I can look at a bunch of offensive linemen and say that's the strength of this draft.
He's the host of the All-City NFL podcast, Brian Baldinger. Baldy, where are you going to be on draft night, rounds 1 through 3?
Well, I'm going to be with the Jets on Thursday night, opening night, and then I'm going to be in L.A. Friday and Saturday and Sunday at our studios at the NFL Network. So get out of New York and head out west and get ready for Friday and Saturday's picks and make a full evaluation of what everybody did with the all-inclusive report card that you got to put out, obligatory report card sometime on Sunday or Monday.
Well, the Cardinals are going to have a ton of picks that you're going to have to go
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I really am. I'm looking forward to this because I think, if you wanted to sell hope to an Arizona Cardinal fan right now, you just look at what the Houston Texans did last year and look how quickly now, look, CJ, they struck gold and he was a difference, but the coach, the defense was, top 10, what they did in the draft, trading up to get Will Anderson, whatever, free agency in the draft, they did really good and they did great in free agency this year. There is no 5-year plans. It can turn around in a year if you're really smart and really savvy at what you're doing.
Baldy, thank you so much for the time today. We'll bring it back next week in preparation for what is going to be, I think, a historic draft. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Look forward to it. See you.
Fired up. The best insight, the best segment of the week continues with our guy Baldy on Baldy's Breakdowns, Bo.
No doubt about it. You're not going to find that anywhere else. I mean, you're going to find it all the other spots that Baldy's on air, right? Which is the NFL Network and the stuff that he does for the All-City Network. And just follow him on Twitter at Baldy NFL. He's got all those great breakdowns. He mentioned Zach Frazier. He's got a great breakdown of Zach Frazier, the West Virginia center there So it's all fantastic stuff. And it's just like, man, the draft can't get here soon enough. And, hopefully we can put it into the speculation, all the smoke surrounding this Arizona Cardinals team. Like, as it stands right now, the most impressive amount of draft capital, by any metric in the NFL right now belongs to the Arizona Cardinals already. And the fact that they can add on top of that, it's pretty unbelievable.
I love that our fans in the chat, everybody watching at home, has strong opinions about what the Cardinals could do, should do, will do. Listen, if you got strong opinions, you're willing to lay some coin on the line and get some bonus bets in the process, check out BetMGM. First bet offer $1,500. Plus, right now the draft props, they're live, they're fabulous, and they're available to you and yours. Sign up and download the BetMGM Sportsbook app today on your iOS or Android device, or check them out at BetMGM.com. Love the full screen array of props and bets. Who's going to go first overall? I think that's obvious. Caleb Williams minus 1,000, but sign up and deposit at least $10 in your BetMGM Sportsbook account. Place your first wager, receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if it loses. And if your bet does lose, your bonus bets are going to be available once your initial wager is settled. All you got to do is sign up with BetMGM. You got to use that bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager for the amount of at least $10. You're getting $1,500 back if that bet loses, up to $1,500. But you got to check out the show notes for full details. Now listen to my guy Shane Diefenbach talk about it in the disclaimer.
Bets expire in 7 days. One new customer offer only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, North Carolina, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Town on Friday. You got a couple more games. Is the Mullet Arena as far as the Coyotes. They've got a game coming up. Next Wednesday they've got a game. You can get tickets through Game Time. I apologize to everybody who when I encouraged you to go to a Suns game last night and they go down, 34-4, or what was it, 32-4? Regardless, hopefully you didn't break the bank because you used Game Time to get last minute ticket deals. You can save even more money when you sign up. You create an account and you use the code PHNX. You can get $20 off your first order with Game Time. We love using Game Time. It's not just for sporting events. It's to go to stand-up comedy. It's go to concerts, whatever you may be looking for. How about just tickets? Parking to whatever event you've got tickets to. You can get a parking pass through Game Time, and you can save money doing it. Check out what's going on. Create that account. Use that promo code PHNX. Save $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Drop a like on this video. The goal today, it remains 500 likes for your boys, Johnny, Bo, Damon, and Baldy, here on a Football Wednesday. And the topic of discussion, of course, remains Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals. Who is the biggest loser if a deal does not go down, or if it does in some cases? A lot of Cardinal fans feel like, Bo, if the Cardinals make this deal with Minnesota, they're a big fat loser. And I listened to Brian Baldinger just now. It's like, well, 3 firsts didn't work for the Raiders. It didn't really work for the Lions, right? And yeah, this blue chip rich top 10 has a bunch of sure things. Yeah. That's speaking to the choir here, the folks hoping to hold the line.
Who were the architects of those teams? Let's just try to take inventory. As far as Oakland at the time, it was Mike Mayock, right?
Yeah.
Mike Mayock and John Gruden. And that was a tremendous failure across the board, right?
Horrendous.
Detroit was what time in any time before the last 3-4 years?
Yeah, it wasn't Dave Sears. It wasn't the group that had revitalized the city. It was actually Stafford in some of his worst years in Detroit. It was the picks were bad when they made them. Running backs and tight ends. Nobody like Austin Ford were running those drafts.
And he didn't have, it wasn't our bald-headed
savant
chef, Monty Austin Ford, who's going to be in there cooking up just draft day specials. It's going to be unbelievable. But the philosophy remains, right? As many hacks at the dish as possible. I thought it was interesting. And it was just, Baldy joined us. And when I first asked him about the tier of prospects outside the top 10, and there was a noise that came, it was an audible noise, and it wasn't encouraging to me. And I kind of looked at what maybe your reaction was to it. but then he kind of got back on track and seemed like he's confident that the Cardinals can find talent at 11. And of course, with 2 more swings at the dish, 23 and 27. And then, as he mentioned, the 6 top 90 picks, which I think there's full confidence in this organization that Monty Ossenfort, whether it's the first round picks, the second round pick, or the 3/3, he's going to find guys that are going to be able to play impact downs for this organization going forward. But, it's still, you will be doing at the expense of drafting a player the caliber of Marvin Harrison Jr. and the caliber of Malik Neighbors and the caliber of Roma Dunze potentially.
I know what he's saying as it relates to how many more picks do you need? You already have 9 picks in the top 90. Cardinal fans think that too. You do this deal with Minnesota, presumably you're only getting 1 more pick this year. I mean, it's pick 23. I mean, 4 and 11 are swapped and you get 23, right? And I would venture to say they're going to move up at some point with one of those 3rd rounders at minimum. Where would the additional picks be coming from? And this is the hardest pill to swallow for Cardinal fans. They're in 2025. It's like 380 days from now, right? No one wants to live in that reality. That sucks. As much as it's great to look at up until the season started, at least projections of a 1st round pick from your team that you dealt with, a la Houston. I mean, it takes a while for those things to, culminate and come to fruition. If you get a 1st and a 3rd next year, that's great. What happens now? I want my team to be better now. I want to take advantage of this draft now. And so I understand what he's saying. And I do think there's validity to, you don't want 20 rookies on your roster,
right,
excluding undrafted free agents, right? Undrafted free agents. But for me, it's they're going to be fine with the learning curve. Number one, Ossenfort, Gannon, they embrace rookies. We saw it last year. They played a lot of them. Almost had the most rookie snaps in the NFL. They've got one of the youngest teams in the NFL this year. But only 1 more pick's being added if this deal goes down with the Vikings. I think that's important to specify. This deal is about setting up the Cardinals' foundation for the future. And it also tells you, and I hate to swallow this pill because you've been spearheading. The rebuild's not over. It doesn't end this year. It takes another offseason. Marvin Harrison Jr. is instant returns. 1,200 yards this year. Book it. You pass on that for a player that is probably 80%, 75% of Marvin, but you're telling everybody, there's more work to be done next year. Outside of Marvin, people don't want to hear that. People want returns. As Baldy just said, it's not for long lead. You got to be able to get results. There's so many layers and elements to this potential trade. On the surface level, none benefit Cardinal fans immediately. Everything, I would argue, is a negative.
Right. I mean, you've got, this quote that we have from Dane Brugler here as far as Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, don't even read it to me. I can't even.
Well, brace yourself, Damon. Thank you. The quote is, he's among the best receiving prospects to enter the NFL in recent memory, and he has the dedication to his craft to be a playmaking #1 NFL receiver and future All-Pro. That's NFL draft analyst Dane Brugler on Marvin Harrison Jr. And then you got our buddy Jordan Schultz going on Colin Cowherd and saying he's Larry Fitzgerald's very similar Larry Fitz.
Is that good? You want that?
Yeah, I mean, we got to witness it for 17 seasons here in the desert. And, Larry Fitz, I mean, he transcended just the playing field. And I don't know if that's putting too much pressure on the shoulders of a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., but I maintain it's he's not just coming in pro ready, he's star ready. And you think about what the learning curve is going to be and how it differs between Marvin Harrison Jr. and the lumps you're going to take with somebody you could potentially take at 11. When you talk about the welcome to the NFL experiences, where somebody gets knocked on their ass or they make a mistake, where it's Isaiah Simmons makes a wrong read in his rookie game, and boom, Raheem Mostert is down the field for 70 yards and a tutty.
That's what
you're probably not going to experience that with Marvin Harrison Jr. Does he miss a block in the running game? Does he drop a pass? It's not going to be as big as some of these other guys where I think, and the Cardinals are willing to take those lumps because they understand, making mistakes is probably the best way to learn and get better. And you're going to have to deal with that. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr. immediately, the returns on your investment, I don't think you're going to be able to match that as you're on the outside looking in the top 10 potentially.
We talked to Matthew Berry at the Combine. Go check out our interview with him on the network on PHNX Sports here on YouTube. But he told us off air. He's like, in all transparency, like Marvin going to the Cardinals, he's probably a top 10 to 12 fantasy player next year, fantasy wide receiver. It's just like, well, what are we doing? So you're going to draft a player,
isn't it?
You're
a wrinkle to it.
Yeah, it's like
we're talking about prime time games, jersey sales. Remember when David Johnson was the fantasy darling? Speaking of Matthew Berry, that might be a sore subject when he went after the Cardinals organization and David Johnson.
Yeah,
but David, like very rarely, because poor Larry Fitzgerald had a ham sandwich platter of quarterbacks outside of Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer for the bulk of his career. He wasn't, consistently viable in fantasy football. When David Johnson was that man, the guy in fantasy, like that doesn't happen to Cardinals fans. And you could potentially have that right away with Marvin Harrison Jr. That's another wrinkle to this. And I know like Monty Ossenfort doesn't give a shit about that. But at the same time, his bosses do. And the fan base does. It would mean a lot to this fan base to have a player of that caliber that they could say is theirs.
Well, my point was more so just to say, like, if you're top 12 in fantasy protection, like you're kicking ass on the field, you're scoring touchdowns, you're getting big play. Like, what are we doing if that's the case? Oh yeah, he's already one of the best at his positions. And like people may scoff at that. If you're under the assumption he's the best prospect to come out in the last half decade, he's better than Jamar Chase that got his team to a Super Bowl. Like, go look back. AJ Green is a rookie. Julio Jones is a rookie. Like, especially in today's robust 17-game pass-heavy offense, pass-happy NFL, where like you can't touch anybody at the line of scrimmage. They're like outside of injury, I'd be willing to wager like, how is he not getting 1,000 yards next year? Very like something happens, God forbid, to Kyler and or Marvin. That's the only way he will sleepwalk his way in the NFL at 6'4" to 1,000 yards. And like the returns are what matter, man. And I love Ossenfort and the long-term approach. Took Garrett Williams last year, knew he wouldn't be ready till October, November. They waited on Kyler Murray because that was the right decision. They took Michael Wilson, who had injury concerns. He missed time. But you heard Brian Baldinger. Paris Johnson Jr. was a sure thing last year. He was a safe player. And guess what? Didn't miss a snap as a rookie. Best rookie offensive lineman this team has drafted with respect to DJ Humphries, who didn't really play as a rookie, in 25 years. It's just like, can we just play it safe? Can we get a player the caliber of Paris, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's an upper tier prospect compared to Paris, same university, same pipeline? It's just, I saw somebody in the chat earlier say like, Ossenfort and Gannon, like the seat's going to be hot on them if they don't win this year. I don't disagree. Like you can't have a bad season. You can't have 4 or 5 wins, right? We expect more. Like, don't you think they know that? Like, don't you think like, yeah, these are great and we want picks next year, but like, you never know what the NFL brings, and Bidwell's a little bit of a wild card. Like, just play it safe because, like, there is a time to go all in. That's not the time right now, and I think you're counting your pennies too much, going too safe with these extra picks.
Right, and it's already you've got an unbelievable amount of picks this year. Like I said, I mean, pound for pound, the best draft capital in the NFL right now, and that includes the Bears that have, the first overall pick and the 9th overall pick. But as Braggs pointed out when he joined us live yesterday, they have 4 picks. They have 4 selections.
Yeah, I don't buy them trading up for anybody. That's a good point. Like, I don't think, and I had to kind of cue the guys in yesterday, and I think they understood that they are great football minds in their own right. Hogan, Carmi, and Braggs and Nick, like they know that when they like. What's going on right now is rare air as far as negotiations, right? You've got a team with a certain amount of draft capital that acquired that draft capital to do something that rarely gets done. And then the Cardinals are here at a certain spot, not 1, 2, or 3, but 4, that's going to command a historic amount of, capital in return that people aren't used to seeing. And for a player that, we don't talk about this nearly enough, but we do mention it every once in a while. That's probably not worthy of that right now. No. Carbfish, let's get to some of these super chats here, starting us off the top. $4.99. This is late, but I agree with Bo that if we trade down, we should take Byron Murphy, Adonai Mitchell, and Latu, or some combo of defensive players. Like, that's not going to sell headlines, Carbfish, but they would argue.
Talk about safe.
Yeah. that's gonna allow them to build at key. You mentioned 3 key positions: defensive tackle, pass rusher, and wide receiver. So I think, to your point, Carpfish, those names, I like them, are interchangeable, but I think you've hit the nail on the head. Line of scrimmage, impact defender, maybe multiple, offensive line, receiver, like that, and maybe corner. That's the sandbox.
Well, and then you look at the last 2 extensions that were given out, within the last week, right? You got Derek Brown, Carolina, another interior defensive lineman. If you've got one, you hold on to him. And the best way to get one of those players is to draft and develop them. And you got to take, when you talk about swings at the dish, you got to take one, right? In order to develop one. So like, is it Byron Murphy the second? Is it Johnny Newton? Is it Chris Jenkins in day 2? Is it Darius Robinson, who we could talk about? Adonai Mitchell at the wide receiver position. I mean, that's just a different tier of wide receiver in this class, but still a guy that projects to play at the NFL level. Him and Ladd McConkey, and that's going to make Johnny's ears bleed. But 2 of the guys that are projected as far as 100-yard games, as far as projected first rounders in some drafts, have the least amount. Like between Mitchell and Ladd McConkey, I think they both had 1 or 2 in their collegiate career. They weren't productive although they played at a high level, at the highest level at the D1 level. But at the same time, like, they were on successful teams, but were they guys that were the primary playmakers? I think you can make the case against that.
Oh, and there are 2 truths to this draft. You can have 2 things be true. This is a great receiver class, and there's a huge drop-off after the top 10 guys. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly. That you're going to get value late first round, second, third, whatever. I saw Brugler had Xavier Legette as a third-round prospect. Like, that's good value. But Rome, Malik, and Marvin are in a tier by themselves, and maybe Brian Thomas Jr. There's a drop-off.
Yeah, and I think Greg Rosenthal of NFL Network, I sent this tweet to you. He's like, there's no too early for selecting Brian Thomas Jr. in this draft for me. That's like one of his few draft takeaways.
Take him at 11.
You could take him at 11. But it's like, when you look at the next wave of prospects, and we're looking at from 11 to 32, right? Like, there aren't nearly as many sure things. Like, Baldy went through them, as you mentioned, like Alt's in there, Neighbors, Adunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, the other quarterbacks
probably in that.
Yeah,
group.
Probably a Dallas Turner, but there's not much. Then you start getting to that next wave, and then you're picking from, if you want to go with close to sure things, Byron Murphy II, Brian Thomas Jr., and then you get into some murky waters. Kev Brooks hitting us with a 199 super chat. Thanks, Kev. Burn those picks. I'm starving for Marvin.
I too am hungry, Kev, and I need to be fed. The boys need to eat here, and we need our boy Marvin in the desert ASAP.
I want Skittles for dinner.
Skittles and Pepsi. That's how Damon rolls.
Damon's on a hunger strike, and he's gonna chain himself to some sort of inanimate object, that's immovable object, and he's going on a hunger strike until Marvin Harrison Jr. is a Cardinal.
I can't believe we haven't gotten here yet, but I mean, it seemed a lot of people wanted you guys to apologize to me for your treatment of me on yesterday's show.
I'm so sorry, Damon. I'm so sorry you were wrong yesterday. Let me get my 4-part apology. Kiss my ass. We're not doing that here. We're reading super chat. Oh, I love you, brother.
People thought that like I was like behind the camera, just like sick to my stomach, just pissed off at both of you guys.
Yelling at me.
They were so mean to Damon yesterday.
Are the PHNX Cardinals guys breaking up?
I do think that you, I mean, I watched back on it, and I do think that my points I was making were very viable. Like, if you're the Vikings, there is no reason to trade that extra first round pick if you think that there is no other team that is gonna want to trade up to that spot. If the Giants are truly out, that is very viable for the Vikings.
They're not out until the Cardinals are off the clock, in my opinion. They're in.
But then I said this yesterday, but we're picking and choosing which reports we want to believe and which ones we don't.
Why do you feel like the Vikings sought out the trade with the Houston Texans to acquire that extra pick?
In order to trade up, but I don't think that necessarily means it has to be the 4th overall pick. I think it could be the 3rd pick. I think it could be the 5th pick.
Sure.
The Giants were they're going to meet with Jaden Daniels here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, that's
interesting.
That'll be time well spent. $2 super chat. It's like I'm going to go meet with meet with Sydney Sweeney this weekend. I got to go meet with Heidi Klum 1995. That's what I'm doing. Congrats, Giants. Go meet with Danny Dimes. $2 super chat. Baldy loves Joe Alt. K1 plus alt equals win. I don't disagree with that. PHNX rock. # alt at 4. Joe Alt to me is he's my second favorite player in this draft. That's probably still true. And while he had his combine wasn't elite, like I wanted him to have like a Tristan Wirfs kind of combine dudes. Like, even though we're wide receiver hungry, we're infatuated with receiver, like Joe Alt on the Cardinals in some kind of scenario would be a good thing. Like because he's the best at his position, a premium position. So if that happens somehow, as long as it doesn't happen, pick 4, like I'm not gonna be disappointed.
Let's keep it going with these super chats. You guys are crushing it. $5 super chat from Loso. If we don't take MHJ, then I guess we just can't have nice things.
Again, you could. It's like an investment over time, but no. Quinyon Mitchell's not selling jerseys at NFL Shop. Byron Murphy II's not doing that. It's about wins, though. We got to contextualize it. They got to win games. A lot of teams win the offseason, but
we talk about like if you're going to go against the grain, if you're just going to go against keeping it simple and taking the best player available. The one that's going to immediately, bolster your organization and give your organization what it desperately needs outside of the quarterback position in some potential star power. If you're going to go against that grain, you have to do it in winning football games. Like you have to come out and be this collective unit, which the Cardinals ultimately want to be, and they have the ability to do it even with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he actually probably gives you the best path, but in order to do it and then also be primed, for the next offseason already before you even get started on this regular season. But man, like I don't know, man. It just would be for the Cardinals to pass on that. They have to win football games. The pressure immediately increases.
You would think like in any other scenario, most fans would be like, take the package. We're fleecing them. Yeah. This is like universally panned, and they have to know that. Short Stack Goblin, $4.99 super chat. Kime will be known as the GM who couldn't identify blue chip players. Monty will be known as the guy who passed on them. # AZ Sports. Next time, let's do # PHNX Sports. Just, but we appreciate you, Short Stack Goblin. He hasn't done it yet, but it would be consecutive drafts where he would pass on the presumed. Like a lot of people thought Will Anderson Jr. was the best player in last year's draft, or at least like 1 or 2. He would be passing on the best 2 players in the draft consecutive years. And that's tough. That puts a lot of pressure on you. Like the point of this is you're just trying to increase the odds that you hit on players. That's why you want more picks. But if you have almost a guarantee at pick 4, why do you need to water it down for a couple more flips of the coin? If it's 50-50 later on, this is an odds game. It's like being, playing craps in Vegas. You just want to play the odds. But if there's a sure thing, and not all of them are equal, then you take the sure thing.
Continue with these super chats. BA Brian jumping in. Real question besides Jamar Chase. What top wide receiver taken in the first round? Warner went to a championship. Also, top wide receiver taken isn't always the best in the draft.
It's a great point. And it's one like the people the 10%ers out there who are opposed to Marvin and want to trade down, maybe want like Deuce, an offensive lineman, like this is their argument. And it's a fair argument. My pushback is like the Cardinals also just don't have an X receiver to begin with. It's not like they're doubling down on what they already have.
And football has changed. Mm-hmm. It's like what happened in the 1980s doesn't really affect current modern 2024 football. Like a receiver going top 5 is much more important these days than it was back then. So I think that's kind of null and void.
Right. And look, I think we have a lot of confidence in Kyler Murray's ability, especially with the offensive infrastructure from kind of more of the protection standpoint and a play calling standpoint, opposed to the previous regime, to elevate, maybe lack their talent in the receiving core. But look, like you can't just give him chicken shit and expect him to make chicken salad. Like you have to give him some talent. I think he's got some playmakers and Wilson and Greg Dortch and of course Trey McBride. But it's tough to do that. Like you have to have a guy that's going to command the focus of the defense and a guy that's going to command the ball that you sometimes need to force to, right? As far as like, I think Trey McBride can make the case for that, but I would much rather it be from the wide receiver position. Traditionally, that's really how it goes. That outside of what they've got going on in Kansas City, I don't want to use that. Like, I feel like that's kind of the exception.
Tony Sable, thank you so much. $10 super chat. You guys are awesome. By the way, hit that like button. We're going for 500 likes today. Tony just saying you guys are a safe place for Arizona sports today. Can't wait for the draft party. Well, I mean, we do this show with a heavy heart, knowing what's going on with our fine peers, PHNX Coyotes. Of course, the people here in Arizona that's impacting. Still holding out hope that something gets done, but at the same level, it's a really unfortunate situation that has felt like Bo's been building for some time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when we talk about this organization, the Arizona Cardinals, and how uneven it has been, and like you look for stability, and you don't know how good you have it, right? I mean, I feel for the Cardinals or the Coyotes fan base, the people that work for that organization, and of course our great crew that covers it. Between Leah, Craig, and Petey, they did a fantastic job in being a voice for everybody out there and getting down to this crazy situation. Our guy Joshua giving us a $1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Josh. We appreciate that. If you had maybe you wanted to put something with that super sticker,
he's got one coming up here. Well, okay. Let's skip right to it. Joshua, $4.99. Gonna need beers at the draft party when they don't hold the line. Well, you're gonna get them. Free drinks, free food, great vibes.
Can hold the line people say that? Can they even think of, Damon? Like, are you allowed to think of a reality, a future without Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Are we allowed to have doubts?
Yeah. Or is it all rainbows and butterflies?
I think as long as your mentality is we're going down with this line. Okay. I don't mind if you have some doubts, but you got to be willing to die for the cause. That's for sure. Okay. And I think Joshua is. Right. I could tell just by looking into his profile picture's eyes.
I feel like Bo and I are in a lose-lose situation because at this point we've been
so much marked, of a lose-lose.
Yeah, we're marked as villains here. So if they take Marvin, we've been told we can't celebrate Marvin, and if they don't take Marvin, then it's we live in the reality where that's not a possibility for the team.
You're the bad guys who made it happen.
How do we win here?
Yeah, it's a lose-lose. But I've made myself getting a win-win. So that's where you guys maybe need to brush up on how to
we get your ass
to handle this.
That'll come real fast. Biscuit and Bears, $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Biscuit and Bears, for the support on that level. We greatly appreciate
Biscuit
it.
And the Bear.
Biscuit and the Bear, excuse me. Mm-hmm. How long do the fan wait? Cool, get 3 firsts and 11. Is Monty really going to bat 100? Great point. Is the game plan to keep rebuilding until Murray is gone? If the Cards go 5-11, is that Murray, or do they have great weapons? I would say, to Bo's point earlier, Biscuits and the Bear, you need to see this to translate immediately. You got picks next year, and you can't do anything with those. But who are the players you picked at 11, 23? It puts extra pressure on 27 and 35. Everybody needs to be saying about this Cardinal team, they're ahead of schedule and they're vying for the postseason. Mm-hmm. Anything less than that, with the amount of picks that you have, and Baldy said, Bo, with the rise to prominence with teams like Houston via the draft, I don't want to see results in Thanksgiving again this year and be like, oh yeah, trending in the right direction. Can't wait for 2026. No. It's time to win now.
Right. I mean, the wide receiver that you inevitably get, if he has a Michael Wilson 500-yard performance, I think with this class, that's not acceptable, right? No. You have to find the guy that's going to be productive, that's going to be a difference maker in your lineup. And you look at it, if you're going to punt on the ability to get a generational wide receiver early, you've got to find difference makers on probably the defensive side of the football that are going to get you off the field. That's going to get the ball in the hands of your franchise quarterback, and they continue to be a top 10 offense. It has to be, the offense has to be the status quo or better on the offensive side of the football. And you have to make huge improvements on the defensive side of the football.
Ben saying this, is this true? Every team that made the playoffs last year have at least one Pro Bowl or Pro Bowl caliber pass catcher. I guess that's true. I mean, right now, that would be, I would say that's still the Cardinals with Trey McBride. Trey McBride should have made the Pro Bowl this year.
I think maybe the Packers are the only one that I can think of that maybe weren't in that group. But other than that, I think, that's definitely true. I mean, you got You got Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb. Who did the Browns have? Anybody? Amari Cooper,
Njoku made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Travis Kelce.
It's a great point. Like a receiver is not going to win you a Super Bowl, but it probably is going to help you get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so it's like, before you win a Super Bowl, you got to get to the big dance. What is it? Like the great ones say?
The Ravens have one?
Mark Andrews.
Man, he was Pro Bowl. I feel like they're an anomaly because of their style of play.
Yeah. Like have they spent draft capital though on the wide
receiver? They've certainly tried. The little guy this year really helped them until he fumbled in the AFC Championship game. What was his name?
Zay Flowers.
He's little.
He could be that caliber, just not yet.
Yeah.
We talked about him during the playoffs. Like, this is what Rondale Moore was supposed to be. Patrick T, $5 super chat. I feel like people covet picks too much. Picks are good, but they don't win games. You have to use them. Isn't it funny? Like, we talked about it all year. Like, oh, man, the Cardinals are so loaded with picks this year. I don't know what it's going to be like when all these picks come to fruition in April. And now they're talking about adding more to that. And it's just like, I'm full. I've gone to the buffet. I've had a bunch of rotisserie chicken. I've eaten mac and cheese. I've eaten the cobbler. I've had sushi. I've had the pizza. I've had the Chinese food. I don't want anymore. I don't want anymore. I don't want a 6-plate Monty Austin Ford. Please don't make me do this.
Why? I mean, the roster still needs it. It needs an infusion of talent. They're a draft and develop team. Like, what's their core right now? Who's their core right as it stands right now? Kyler Murray, Paris Johnson Jr.,
Trey McBride.
I almost said Zach Ertz. Michael Wilson.
Not a lot of defenders.
Wow. Jalen Thompson, Budda Baker.
Budda might be gone.
Budda's on his last year of his contract. Jalen, I agree. Jalen's only, 25? I mean,
you're asking me to list like they're good players, like in the prime. Yeah, there's not that many.
Okay, that's the point.
But you're going to lock it. You're going to get one added to that list for sure.
That's right.
For sure. Notice how you didn't add B.J. Ojulari to that list. And he was a high second-round pick. And it's like, okay, I know Quinyon Mitchell's not B.J. Ojulari, but you're watering it down to close to that caliber of prospect. You want to screw around in the B.J. Ojulari went. He could have been a late
Let's be respectful here. Quinyon Mitchell is a projected top 15 pick.
Okay. I'm talking about, though, pick 20. They want pick 23 and a first next year that could be in the 20s.
Yeah.
You're going to get, if you're not getting B.J. Ojulari, you're getting somebody on that caliber-esque, and it's not as a sure thing. Like, let's be real.
If Monty Osfort hits on, let's say, in a trade-down scenario, hits on 11 and 23, does that give you more confidence in that 20?
Well, yeah, of course. You would sign up for that tomorrow.
Okay.
Is he doing that, though?
We talked about B.J. Ojulari, he was 41. We talked about Michael Wilson, he was 96. I think Garrett Williams, who they were able to get at a unique position because of his injury, he was 92. Like, I think you can say, like, those might be seeing eye singles, but there's still singles in the box score as far as draft hits for Monty Osfort. And
I need a grand slam, damn it.
Yeah, you need some doubles. You absolutely do. 11 needs to be a double or triple. I agree with you. As we use too much baseball analogy.
When is the last grand slam this team has had? Kyler Murray, probably. Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's a grand slam.
Budda's not grand slam, but he's a homer for sure.
I'm tired of floor raisers. I want some ceiling raisers, man.
Well, you can get floor raisers with 27, 35, 60, 71. I want you to just step up to the plate and just whip one over the fence and be content with, like, we have the best player in this draft, ass kicker. Or we can take a bunch of guys that could pan out and feel good about it.
They could even be Marvin Harrison Jr. Maybe.
Chris Smith, $5. The pressure.
I just don't like hearing Johnny use terminology. Try whip it. I like to whip it over the fence. I don't know about that.
Shut up. Chris Smith, $5 super chat. The pressure Marvin Harrison Jr. has to be Larry Fitz is minuscule compared to the pressure he's dealt with being his dad's son. Great point. MHJ is already a star. I could argue, Chris, to your point, this is a great point by Chris Smith. There is not a better prospect equipped to take on the pressure of following Larry Fitzgerald than Marvin Harrison Jr. Plus, you had the period of DeAndre Hopkins, who kind of alleviated some of that pressure. You're not going straight from Fitz to MHJ, but there is no better player. You're right, Chris.
Yeah, you never want to be the guy that follows the guy. And luckily, there's enough buffer there. But I think still, regardless, great point there by Chris. How about Ray, $4.99 super chat? Am I reaching in my dream trade situation being a trade down for 3 firsts and a third? Use the 11 and the third and a third of our own, maybe to get back up for Rome.
You're not reaching. This is something Austin Ford, I'm sure, has gone through. But my point, Ray, is if you're going to do that, that needs to be done before the draft, outlined with teams as an option. Well, how are you going to do that if you're currently holding pick 4? I just don't think it's realistic to say going from 4 to 11 back up.
And the shift around that much capital, right? And to do it's just rearranging the furniture in a sense. Like, so you pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. and you get, wide receiver 3 who's really good. And you get, so if you give up 2/3, right? Is that right? And your pick swap, I guess it's just, why not just stick and pick and take Marv? I think that's the easiest path.
I think it's to get the first next year.
Yeah.
You want the first round pick next year. Oh, for show. $1.99 super chat. Johnny and Bo. What is that? What is that word?
Yeah, it's I looked it up. It's a medication that helps with bipolarism and schizophrenia and like Tourette's and stuff.
Thanks for the super chat. Oh, for sure. I posted a video from yesterday's show. I'm just going to leave this here for the rest of the draft season. I think they're going to trade down. I wouldn't trade down. I take Marvin Harrison.
You can't do that, Johnny. You can't. There can't be nuance to this conversation. You're either holding the line or you're not.
I would argue that nobody has been more and I'm being serious, factual with regard to this situation since the offseason began. That number one, we knew definitively that Marvin was the top player on their board, and the only thing that could get in the way of that is either the Patriots taking Marvin at 3 or another quarterback emerging because Austin Ford would be too tempted to trade down. And guess what? The latter has happened, and we're stuck with it.
Back to Loso. Is IOSO? Was it? That's
Loso.
Loso. $2 super chat. Thanks again for jumping in, spending some more cash with us. Kime passed on CD. He did. He also passed on Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills,
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, he did that. He was bad. He was bad at his job. Donnie Redbirds, $9.99. Danny, good tips at work today. So here's a super chat for our sweet babies. Thank you, man, Danny. Speaking of which, Johnny, I'm a barber. So if you ever in SoCal, I can help. Give me Marv. Suck it, O'Connell. I wonder why he's hitting up Johnny for a haircut. He must think that the rest of us are getting our needs met as far as our haircuts.
I have an elite flow. Thank you so much, Danny. We appreciate you, Danny, friend of the program. Marty Sheets, $5. Love the show, boys. I'm a Vikings fan, but love your show. Good luck either way. Well, thank you, Marty. We hope that you have good things come your way. I don't know if I feel that way about the Vikings, although, if the Cardinals trade down with the Vikings and they get McCarthy and he works out and the Cardinals end up doing well in their trade, like that's good news for everybody. They
play each other next year, right?
Wouldn't it suck if they beat us with JJ McCarthy? That'd be rough.
Terrible.
That'd be real
terrible.
Excited, joyous, worldly, $5 super chat. You can argue that all the attention MHJ would get on the field, that might be like drafting 2 first-round players by himself. I think the impact of Marvin Harrison Jr., if he hits, is worth 2 first-round picks easily.
Yeah.
Like what Tyreek Hill went for 2 first-round picks. Justin Jefferson would go for multiple. Jamar Chase, like the caliber player that we're discussing is worth 2 first-round picks, assuming that they follow through. So 100% excited.
Excited, joyous, worldly. I feel like my wife has that on a sign in our laundry room, and we appreciate your $5 super chat. What? Love, live, and what was it? Yeah, it's exactly like those.
Live, laugh, love.
Yeah, live,
is that
laugh,
what you're
love.
going for?
That's what I'm feeling like.
The only thing we have in our house is put the toilet seat down. That's it. Picking spreads, Donnie, $4.99. Bo, go ahead.
Yeah, daily reminder: MHJ at Ford AZ. By the way, I'm excited to see Peter Schrager's mock because he's solely based on league connections. It drops sometime next week. Schrags has been very dialed in, especially with the Cardinals pick. He missed for the first time in a long time last year. I'd have to double check.
What do you have last year? Will
I don't
or
know, but he was 4 for his last 4 going into 2023
It's hard
draft.
to telegraph trades, though. I'll give him that. Like it, as Bo checks that now, it is hard. Like
He had the Rosen deal and the trade up. He had Zaven Collins, who was 16th overall. He had Kyler, which was a little bit easier. And
he had all the Kime moves. What does that tell you?
What could that tell us? What do you mean?
Because everybody in the prior regime couldn't keep their mouth shut.
Right.
Loso, $5 super chat. This is the same team that took Simmons over CeeDee Lamb. I think about that maybe once a day, Loso. It's a horrible occurrence. And again, like, I know CeeDee went like the late teens. They should have taken Tristan Wirfs. Like, we talk about CeeDee, like Wirfs should have been the pick. Patrick T, $5 super chat. MHJ is MHJ, but 3 first-round picks could be anything. Could even be MHJ, make the pick. Yeah, it's like that meme. It's like, you could have a new boat.
It's Family
Guy.
You
could have this new house, or you could have the mystery
What's in the box.
What's in the box? That's right.
Could even be a boat.
I feel like when you talk to Austin Ford Ball with the pre-draft pressure, you should say, hey, Monty, let's just play a hypothetical game. You can have the keys to my car, my truck in the parking lot, or you could have this brown paper bag and whatever. And you should see what he says.
Multiple brown paper bags.
Yeah, that's right. Ben, the Cardinal fan, $2
for Schrager, by the way. We'll get to that.
I dare say Dante Stills and Paris Johnson Jr. are. I'm guessing he means that they're cornerstone players. Absolutely. We asked Gannon about Dante Stills at the combine when we chatted with him, and he's a big fan of them. So, like, they're also going to get cornerstone players gas beyond the first round. So it's like, I trust that they're going to hit on some picks maybe in the 4th and 5th. So, like, that confidence should lend yourself even more to taking Marvin 4th overall.
I just, it is wild to me that, like, you and a big group of people can be like 11, ugh, yuck, and then you can be like, but you can find talent in the later stages of the draft.
You know what I mean? Because I'm comparing it to who I know is available right now. No one knows who's going to be available at the slumming at the day 3.
Johnny's a little snappy these days, isn't he?
I think the Marvin stuff is really like it's putting some pressure on him.
No, some of us are locked in for this draft.
I've never been more locked in.
All those big boy responsibilities that he's feeling all the pressure of having to be.
Some of us are still treating the show like it's mid-January. We're kicking our feet up and we got a bunch of time to kill. No, bros, we have 15 days to get this.
I'm in the trenches. We're rationing out Skittles to everybody.
I'm about to be on air for 10 plus hours over the course of 3 days. So it's only going to get worse from here. But again, we go downhill in a good way if they take Marvin.
Peter Schrager in his final mock draft of 2023, as he was batting 1,000 for the previous 4 drafts, he struck out. He had CJ Stroud going 3rd overall in a trade down. That nearly happened. Yeah. Our snappy boy, Johnny Venerable, had it sourced that the Titans were trying to come up.
They were.
But the Texans wised up. He had the Texans taking Will Anderson Jr. 2nd.
That hurts.
Yeah.
You're the Titans, and he's in the division now forever, and you're stuck with Will.
You know who feels really bad about it? Mike Vrabel, because he truly wanted CJ Stroud.
Mayonnaise boy, though.
Wow, and then he lost his job.
And then he had the Cardinals go down to 11 and take Broderick Jones out of Georgia.
So, I mean, he had him trading down, but it's tough to telegraph the trade down. Did you hear about the tackle from Georgia, Mims? What's his first name? Amarius Mims decided not to weigh in at his pro day. Not a good sign. What is a good sign, though, right now is the deals you can get with our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos on top of being the home of the 2024 PHNX Cardinals draft party next Thursday. We are giving out more tickets on Friday for our now sold-out event. In the meantime, check out Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Nobody does it better. I guarantee it. They've got a state-of-the-art gaming floor, over 800 slot machines, 15 blackjack tables. They've got live table games and more. Not to mention, you're going to need this next Thursday, Arizona's largest casino sportsbook. It is elite. Love my paper tickets, right? Check them out right now. And I can tell you, I've been to a plethora of the premier 5-star Vegas casinos. Gila River Resorts and Casinos is on par, if not exceeds the large majority of those. Check them out right now. Head to Gila River Resorts and Casinos, and they're going to let you know, Bo, what next level is all about. Our party in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks from tomorrow, is going to be next level. The biggest, the best event PHNX Cardinals, and dare I say PHNX Sports has ever done.
That's right. All 100 plus of you are going to achieve legendary status. Can't wait for that. Also, if you want to keep winning, why not check out and turn to our friends over at Arizona Lottery? Introduced this new ticket promotion called Arizona Adventure. It's a blast. There's 3 different ways you can win. You can win traditionally. Get your favorite coin out, your lucky coin scratch off. 3 iconic landscapes on their scratchers: Picacho Peak, Monument Valley, Camelback Mountain for $50,000. It's returned to Camelback Mountain. It's no longer Hollywood Camelback Mountain. You can win $50,000 there. Also, you can check in geolocated adventures, 10 destinations across the state from Flagstaff to Yuma. Just log on to azadventure.com for details and directions. Check in, and you can enter tickets to win online for $1 million cash in Arizona travel prizes. Heard that Arizona Lottery, they're using ticket sales to support environment conservation and other important initiatives across the state, which means Arizona Lottery is more about just winning prizes. It's about giving back to its communities. So why not invest in that while you're investing in yourself as well, playing some fun games and winning some cash and Arizona travel prizes as well, up to $1 million at azadventure.com.
Back to the super chats we go. Didi, $1.99, draft alt, no MHJ, PHNX #1. Didi, Deuce. They're pro alt. I don't hate that. I don't want to make alt to be an enemy here, but I'm going MHJ over alt ever so slightly. JD the GOAT, $1.99. Team Marv plus everyone give this live a thumbs up. So
thank you.
Mr.
That's the guy Jaden, right?
Yeah. Jaden's going Marvin Harrison Jr. Jaden's not going to the Giants though. Jaden.
Did we get Jaden draft party tickets yet?
No, we're working on it.
We're still working on it. I heard Nick reach out to me about draft party tickets, and he said he reached out. He wanted some of the leftover tickets, and he said, forget about it. My girlfriend surprised me with 2 tickets to the draft party.
Get down on a knee, brother.
That's right. Lock her up, my guy.
She's a special woman.
Yes.
Man, my wife would never do that to me. She'd be like, tough luck. Go get groceries.
We should get him to propose once we pick Marvin at 4. Really just cap off just a wonderful special.
It'd be the greatest day of Nick's life.
That would be an electric moment. I don't want to. I think that sounds romantic, but I don't want to.
You don't think she'll like that?
she's already done so much.
We're already gonna have the tux on. It'll feel like a wedding vibe. John, $5 super chat. If we take MHJ, can you imagine next season hearing anyone complaining if we only had pick 23? Great point, John. It's like no one's going to know the hypothetical because all those picks are going to be compared to Marvin, and you got an uphill climb. If Marvin kicks ass, it's like, man, could we only have had X player that we didn't know we were going to have? That's a great point. And again, the mental gymnastics that are going to go on after the results of this picks, the ripple down effect are going to be significant.
Yeah, our guy Marty Sheets, I think that was a great point. $10 super chat. Hope y'all get Marvin. I think that Darnold may have something. He has been on the crap team since being drafted, except for the 49ers for a minute, but I wouldn't want Monty or Kwesi making a trade.
There's a segment of Vikings fans who, they want a quarterback, but they don't want McCarthy for 4 1s or 3 1s. I understand that. I'd be very hesitant, Marty, I think most Viking fans would rather be like, well, let's just use a pick on like a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix Jr. And I would argue like the Vikings are in a position to support one of those 2 quarterbacks. But if you believe the tea leaves and the reports, Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan, they have a type, and their type is JJ McCarthy, Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what they like. They like the efficiency. And I do think, McCarthy's got more upside than those prospects coming out. But yeah, the Penix and Bo Nix they don't seem like a fit with Minnesota, Bo.
Yeah, 23 is probably not a reach. Like if they were able to, this is once again, not only you, it seems like it's a competition of 1 or maybe 2 to get up in the top 5 to get a guy like JJ McCarthy, but then you're trying to fend off for, could somebody reach for Michael Penix? Ozzy _221. If we draft MHJ, I'll propose to my wife. Yeah, well, I think a lot of us will probably we'll
do our vows, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll be like, honey, let's renew our vows. And she'll be like, get away from me. JD to go. She's like watching Grey's Anatomy. He's saying you can scratch us off the list. He's going to be in Detroit. Hopefully he gets to see Marv in person. That's awesome, Jaden. Have a great time at the draft.
You think Marv's going to the draft?
I think so. Yeah, I think he'll be there. If he's not, that would be kind of lame. His dad wouldn't let him go to the draft.
Didn't even go to the combine.
He didn't go. Yeah,
time to show up for some stuff, Marvin. We need you to participate.
He went to the Heisman. He went to the Heisman ceremony.
He showed up to Tempe. That's a damn
He was
fact.
at the combine to meet with teams. He just wasn't talking to the media, and I cried. Picking spreads, Donnie, $1.99. Betting odds for the pick number 4, -200 MHJ, plus 400 for JJ. That's changed in a day because yesterday it was -175 and plus 175. So that's it. That's interesting. I don't hate it.
Marv's been -200 for a few days now. I think JJ was a little higher than
so
that.
Wasn't it at one point -175 plus 175?
That's what it was yesterday.
Yeah. And it varies by sportsbook, but that's a big difference there. I mean, maybe there's some momentum for the Chargers to be the team to trade down. Maybe, throughout these negotiations and trying to kind of bluff each other off, some more picks or less picks. Maybe the Vikings are just like, look, at the end of the day, you very well could stick and pick. You go ahead and do that. We've got somebody we can deal with and work out a deal that makes more sense to this organization to still get our guy.
If you can get JJ McCarthy at a sports book for plus 400, I would suggest that's a nice emotional hedge because I'm looking at one right now. It's still plus 175. J 499. Would you trade down to 11, pick up the extra first to send to Dallas for CD? He's proven MHJ is an unknown bird game for life. I think they've missed their boat on CD. I think that was a prior regime. I think Kyler Murray understands they got to build through the line of scrimmage, and this isn't the Chimera. They're not trading for veteran wide receivers. I think the next great receiver is going to be homegrown, whether it's Michael Wilson or Marvin or somebody else. So I love CeeDee Lamb. That ship has sailed, in my opinion.
I mean, he was the best receiver in football last year, wasn't he? Like statistically, and he's poised to hold out, maybe get himself a big deal with Dallas.
He should get a big deal.
Yeah, he absolutely should. And, I think in a weird way, you want to be in that situation down the road where you're pressed to have to give this guy a big time extension to be one of the highest paid players at his position going forward, because that means you hit in the draft. And yeah, CeeDee Lamb, I just don't think it's going to happen probably ever for him to reconnect with Kyler Murray at the NFL level.
Let them be buddies in the Pro Bowl. Speaking of Pro Bowl, can the Cardinals add some Pro Bowl talent? Mel Kiper Jr.'s 4.0 mock draft landed this morning, Bo, and some good stuff. Marvin goes 4th. Darius Robinson, darling of this show, friend of the program, 27. Hell yeah, sign me up for that. I love Darius Robinson. And then TJ Tampa, friend of Bo Brack through the infamous PFF mock draft simulator. I'll take TJ Tampa at 35. Those first 2 picks from Marvin Harrison Jr. and Darius Robinson. Bo.
How dare you? I got TJ Tampa at 35, didn't I?
Did.
Yeah, that was the one everybody cooked you on, though.
And we made fun of you for it.
Yeah, I mean,
head of the curve, Bo Brack.
Huh?
Head of the curve.
I mean, look, he's 6'1", he's physical. He can play that heavy zone scheme. He'd be a good fit, but like we've said before, when the last mock draft we did, and we're going to do a 7-round mock draft tomorrow.
Oh my
God,
God,
it's going to be 2 weeks from today. It just makes when you get Marvin Harrison Jr. 4, it just makes the rest of it feels like you're playing with house money.
You can just sit back and have a cold pop at Gila River, wherever you're watching the draft, and you feel good about the prospects of having 18 in the fold. Like every other pick will be like, hey, you know what? That guy could work out. I feel really good about that. When in reality, if you trade down, everybody's like, is that player going to eclipse Marvin? No. Is that player going to be a bust? Maybe. I mean, Austin Ford has to have a pulse of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he necessarily thinks like that. I think he just says, "Hey, I've got more opportunities to get more good players."
But what about great players?
Right?
What about the great of the great? We're great here on PHNX Cardinals because of all of you like this video. 500 likes is the goal. Subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. And of course, become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. Look at the many workings. Read the many workings of our talented peers like Craig Morgan. You want to know what's going on with this potential relocation? We've got, of course, NBA playoffs en route. Are the Suns going to be a part of it? Gerald Borges cranking out the best written Suns content you can find. Plus, if you become a diehard, pick up a free hat and or t-shirt every single year. You're a diehard member. Again, you get the membership card, discount on all future events, and of course, the poppin' PHNX Cardinals Discord, which we will be dropping exclusive footage. If you can't make it to the draft party, and you want to experience the draft with PHNX Cardinals in lieu of our live broadcast, pop over to the Discord lounge with a membership, a diehard membership. You will not regret it, Bo.
The diehard Discord is the Hold the Line HQ, actually.
It is.
It is.
That's where we set up headquarters.
They've got memes that they've created with Damon's face on them. He's the king of the diehard exclusive member Discord lounge. Cardinals, after it's supposed to have Latuin today, the pass rusher from UCLA, and then Friday, according to Aaron Wilson, they're going to have a rare Canadian Football League most outstanding rookie defensive back as one of their top 30
I've heard
videos.
about this guy. He would be the second player, or maybe third, to ever be drafted without playing collegiate football.
That's right. Quantez Stiggers. And he's eligible for the draft. And he's played pro ball already. So they're utilizing one of the top 30 visits for him.
I heard like 29.
That's certainly a choice.
He has a lot of interest, Johnny, around the league. He won CFL Rookie of the Year. 29 teams, I think, showed up to his pro
How
days.
old is he?
Well, listen, if he's played real football, that's a good sign.
Yeah, he got 5 picks last year.
Oh, he'll be a day 3 pick.
He's supposed to be like a 6th, 7th, maybe undrafted free agent type of guy.
22.
Okay. Sounds like a Gannon guy.
Yeah, I actually think that this guy has some.
Yeah, as you said,
potential.
29 teams were at his pro day. Impressive pro day, as it's been reported. So Quantez Stiggers. And then also there was the news today. Tom Pelissaro, Johnny, I know before we get out of here, the NFL made a new rule as far as giving NFL teams the ability to have a third helmet. So they've informed clubs today they revised the uniform policy to allow teams a third helmet design per source. The expansion was offered to teams that were going through redesign process in 2024, and now it's open to all clubs. What color helmet do you want to see?
Well, I want to go to the vintage white helmet with the old bird logo. I don't need another color. I don't need an all red helmet. I don't need a chrome helmet. Give me the old vintage, like this. Obviously, this is their current helmet, right? I would want the old bird logo instead of this. I'd do a vintage throwback to like the 70s, pay homage to Dan Dierdorf and those kind of players. I think that'd be a really classy move, and I'm sure Bidwell will be all over that. Anything else would just look tacky.
When you look at the excitement that the Eagles got from their throwbacks, or even the blasphemous Tennessee Titans taking the Houston Oilers throwback, right? Like how much hype it gets. Yeah, I mean, like people want to. Kyler wants a throwback. Like he's always liked uniforms that look like the late '90s Cardinals.
I'm trying not to be too demanding because of what we got last year. Like we were living that life last year, and we got new uniforms, and I really like them, especially the white. So if they surprise us with a third helmet, awesome. But I want to win some games in these current uniforms. I want to see those white unis on national TV with number 18 catching touchdowns. That's what I want to see.
A Marvin Harrison Jr., Pat Tillman era Cardinals jersey. I will be there no matter what.
Mitchell
Take
Ness,
all of my money.
Picking spreads. Donnie in the chat. $1.99. DJ Tampa, known bad football player. Sorry, I hate him. Wow.
He's from Iowa. Picking spreads.
Yeah.
He's probably watching them quite a bit.
He probably beat up on his Hawkeyes. Topic 64, friend of the program. $4.99. Love Mike Mel Copper's mock draft. Let's add Brendan Rice to that mix. True hashtag hold the line. Topic 64, holding the line. We appreciate you. Brendan Rice be a great play. Brendan Rice and Marvin, one in the first, one in the third, would be a great scenario for the Cardinals. And it would have the sex appeal. It would have the headlines and the cachet that this team desperately needs. You guys give us all the headlines here on PHNX Cardinals on a daily basis. Like this video. Subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. We're going 500 likes today is the goal. As Bo mentioned, we are doing our robust 7-round mock draft via the PFF simulator. Buckle up tomorrow. Get your recommendations in. And then, of course, on Friday, it's Fan Mock Friday, followed by more ticket giveaways. And who knows, maybe a little bit more insight as it relates to a potential deal between the Cardinals and the Vikings. For Bo Brack, Damon Dog behind the mic, I'm Johnny Venerable. Thank you so much for the support today. We will see you tomorrow. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.